Hello, Beth. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Elisha, I'm great. How are you? It's nice. I'm honored to be here.
Beautiful. I am doing quite fine, and thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. And you see, Beth, oftentimes I love to thank my guest for two things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, Beth, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invest it in yourself. And oftentimes, Beth, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. They say some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, Beth, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I use the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Beth, just recently I was on that same road. And this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance. And immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches. I tell you, and not just mangoes now, Bet. I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day, and I was so excited. Here's my point: the fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Bet that you are today. That alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing. Your philosophies, your journey, your insight, the impact your work is having, and how you are offering your solutions. These stuffs I found very beautiful. I've got to say it. And so thank you so very much for doing that to yourself. And
Oh,
secondly,
I'm touched and thank you.
yeah, beautiful. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, Beth.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good for both of us, right? I enjoy the
Right,
conversation, the message.
beautiful. So let's get started. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today, Beth, for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Ben, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information, and not just knowledge now, but the application of it. And you see, Ben, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the incredible Beth on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, we live in an
Mhm.
age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of information flying out there. So those folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, Beth, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, Beth, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or your professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Beth got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Beth, over to you.
Okay, so my journey, boy, it's been a journey. So I grew up in LA and then we moved to Oklahoma when I was in junior high school, and which was a culture shock for me. But I knew in Oklahoma that I one day wanted to be a newscaster because a newscaster had come and spoken to our classroom. And I was just fascinated with her, and she seemed polished and sophisticated and smart and knowledgeable about all sorts of things. And she could walk around this room and talk to us like We live next door to her. And I thought, boy, one day I want to do that. So that's what I set out to do when I got out of college, and I studied communications. And in my business, in television news, if you want to climb the ladder, you move a lot. So I certainly did. I moved about 13 times across the US for my job. So my first little bitty job was in Joplin, Missouri. And then I worked in Lubbock, Texas. I did a whole bunch of Texas, Tyler, Texas. And then kind of my first big job, if you will, was in Houston at KPRC television, where I did the morning and noon news. And I was there for a number of years. And then I just always aspired to go as high as I could in the industry. I really wanted to try and get to the network level. And I was blessed to land a job at the CBS affiliate in Philadelphia, worked there for a few years. Then I went across the street to the NBC network owned station and worked there for a number of years. And while I was in Philly, 9/11 happened. And folks know that Philly is only an hour and a half away from New York. And so when 9/11 happened, then my station loaned me to New York for a little bit to help cover some post 9/11 things. And then I came back to Philadelphia, and then a bunch of things happened in my life, my personal life. Right around then, I was going through a divorce. My mother died very unexpectedly. My stepfather had a quadruple bypass. My dog died. And oh, yeah, I got
Oh,
word that my contract at NBC wasn't being renewed because Comcast was buying NBC. So there was a corporate takeover. So a lot of jobs were being eliminated, mine included. And so all of this happened in a very short period of time, which is not an excuse for anything. It's just an explanation of my personal stressors in life. And of course, we all have them. And then I moved to Minnesota, where I worked for the Fox owned station and event. And that's where I was fired because I got 2 DUIs in 2 years. And which is embarrassing and humiliating. And it was after all of those things kind of happened that I realized my drinking was getting out of control and getting the better of me. After my first DUI, my boss did offer me help. He said, if you have a problem, we'll send you to treatment. We will get you help. And, anybody watching this who's had any challenges in their life might relate, but shame is a powerful thing. The shame and the stigma of being known as an alcoholic or being labeled as an addict, I just couldn't bring myself to acknowledge it and embrace it and take the lifeline that was being thrown to me. And my boss said, we'll try and keep your job, but if this ever happens again, just know you're fired. That will be your second chance. And I really I thought I could control the alcohol, but because we're strong people, I've seen a lot. I've been at 9/11, the Oklahoma City bombing, the, George Floyd riots. I was shot in the hip. I've seen a lot of stuff in this world. So you get a backbone, you get to be pretty strong. And I thought, I will get on top of this and control it. But you realize that alcohol in the world of relationships, it's a taker, not a giver.
mm,
And alcohol does not negotiate. And so I got my second DUI a year later because, it's a disease and it's progressive. And I was able to abstain for a little bit. But, if you ever let a little bit of alcohol back in your world, it tickles the brain and you're off to the races. And that's what happened. So I woke up in jail on my second one. I was a blackout
oh,
drinker. And I woke up in jail in a drunk tank, for lack of a better word. And a whole bunch of women were all watching the television in the cell because they were talking about a newscaster who just got busted for her second DUI. And it's really hard to be a crime reporter. I was a pretty well-known crime reporter. It's hard to be a crime reporter when you commit a crime. And
mhm.
when I saw that and I heard that and I saw my mugshot on the TV news, and I'm used to having my face flashed on the camera, but not like that, and certainly not in an orange jail jumpsuit. And when I got out of jail then, and I got the call from the bosses, come to the TV station, we've got some forms you need to sign. And I just had dread in my heart, my soul, and, my shoulders are hung. And I went there and they said, you helped to put us on the map. You had a job for life. I mean, how nice is that to know that every 2 weeks for the rest of your life, you're going to have a regular paycheck, right? But that
Hmm.
wasn't enough to get me to stop drinking. And the boss said, we can't keep you anymore. You're no longer of use or service to us. And he said, we kept a taxi for you because I couldn't drive. The state took my driver's license and also seized my car and sold it at auction, which is what happens when you get multiple DUIs in a short span of time in the state of Minnesota. And my boss said, we have a taxi for you. You can take you to treatment. You can go home. It's your call, but you are no longer an employee here. And that was just like a stab to my heart. And I knew, of all the close calls I've had, of all the warnings, I knew right then this was bad. And my life as I knew it was never going to be the same again. And so I got fired from my job very publicly. I would say the public shame and exile was impressive. It was very well rounded. I lost my license. I was going to lose my home when I had hit someone on the road on the highway whenever I was going home after a night of drinking. And he's okay. The driver's okay, but his car was damaged and he sued me, rightly so. So all of these financial penalties and everything just, multiplied. And knowing all of this, I went to treatment. I'm like, I've got to get my life together. This is, I did this to them. They didn't do it to me. And so it's very self-inflicted. So I went to treatment and did inpatient treatment for 30 days. And then I also joined a program. And I know this is somewhat controversial for people, but for me, 12 steps saved my life. Joining a program with 12 steps, spiritual based with a higher power. And I would go to this meeting every single day for the first year when I got out of treatment. And in between dealing with all my court consequences and da da da. And it was actually the day that I went to court for my hearing. The prosecutor was insistent that I go to state prison for 90 days for the DUIs because she wanted to send a message because I was a high profile person. And she thought, we can send a message to a lot of people here, right? If we put her away, this is a warning, a cautionary tale to others. And of course, I was horrified and scared to death. And the judge called me into his chambers before he sentenced me. And I was scared to go into his chambers because I thought a really bad day is about to get a bunch worse, right? And so I go around into the judge's chambers, and he was standing there with his arms out like this. And he said, come here, let me give you a hug. And he said, I noticed your name as soon as you came on my docket. And he goes, I knew how unpleasant it would be. And he said, I've been following your case. He said, I won't send you to state prison, but you're still going to have consequences. Don't worry. I was going to spend a couple of weekends in the county jail, another weekend at a labor camp, the workhouse. And then I was on house arrest for 37 days with an ankle monitor around to test for alcohol constantly. And then I would have to blow into a machine 3 times a day. And so I could never leave my home. And so he said, I am going to give you consequences. You're going to feel this. And the penalties are doubled because you have 2 DUIs now. But he said, before I came to your hearing, I went to my meeting where he got his 20-year chip. So here the judge, someone a bunch smarter than me, and he's got a couple of degrees and he went to law school. And I just, that was such an impactful moment in my life because the one person who could have thrown the book at me showed me mercy and compassion.
Hmm.
And he gave me support. He said, Beth, you'll have all these consequences. You don't have to go to state prison, but do the right thing, go to treatment, get on the right path. And he said, and when you get through this, I ask you to pay it forward. And that's what I'm doing.
Hmm. 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 When you get through this, I ask you to pay it forward. Wow, that's so
Yeah,
profound.
it
Wow, you
was.
see.
And that judge made me a believer. He had 20 years of sobriety and I couldn't even get a day in at that time. Um, and I was like, wow, it's almost like the support of your father. He had such belief and, and he knew me and he said, I know you're a strong person. You can get through this. It'll be awful. And it was, because I did end up losing my home. I did end up losing everything. And there was a period there that I was kind of looking under bridges, like, is this where I'm going to go live? Like, I don't know. A lot of people in my circle distanced themselves from me. And they did that to protect themselves. I have no hard feelings about it. They didn't know who I was becoming or what I would become out of all of this. And so when I was on the house arrest, and I'm like, well, this is a lot of time to be home alone and up in my head, right? And just beating myself up and wondering how I'm going to start to work my way out of this. And so I joined the AA program. I went to aftercare. I brought in a sober roommate, which was so helpful. If people have ever second guessed doing that, I can only sing the praises, because then it became a sober bubble for my roommate and myself at my home, and gave me a little bit of income, but it gave me support at home. So that is really important. And I thought, well, I'm on house arrest. I'm a writer, I'm a reporter. I've written my stuff my entire life. And so it's up to me that if I'm ever going to tell my story, for me to write it. So I really actually just started writing as a way to fill up some time. It was very therapeutic for me. And I thought, gosh, do I want to reopen some old wounds? But as I started writing more chapters, I realized
Mm.
I was healing those wounds.
Wow. Amazing, Beth. That's really amazing. Okay, so let us talk about your book, all right? Stand By. So what does the title mean? Can you talk to us about that?
Absolutely. And you can see I've got a mock-up of the cover here behind me. And obviously, that picture is my mugshot taken at jail. The other one is just kind of your standard professional headshot that you have. And I did that cover intentionally to show the two sides of addiction, what someone looks like in the throes of illness, and then how someone can turn their life around and what a clean life looks like. And so, yeah, the addiction, the book, it's called Stand By. And Stand By in television news, we always have earpieces in our ear, right? And that's where the control room can talk to us and, stand by for this, stand by for that. What that means is that little finite piece of time where you're suspended in limbo and you have to be ready for whatever comes next. Enter standby, because isn't that just, it speaks to life. Your life's in limbo. You don't know if you're going to be able to go back to the craft that I loved so much and had done for 30 years, working for networks and, covering major stories. I didn't know if I'd ever be able to go back to that or not. And so standby really speaks to that space in between the self-destruction that you see in my mugshot and then self-discovery that you see in my headshot. And I tried to get back into TV news, and I reached out to everybody after I'd gone through all of my consequences, and that took about a year. But I was such damaged goods. Nobody would hire me. I was bad PR at the time. Let's say that. I even went to the mall. I went to the grocery store. Nobody would hire me. I tried to sell my house. Nobody would buy my house because it was my house. So it went into foreclosure and I lost it. And I thought, well, gosh, what can I do? If nobody's going to hire me, I got to make a living somehow. A girl's got to eat. So I went to my neighbors, and also I couldn't drive. And this is the dead of a Minnesota winter, and I only had my 2 feet and a bicycle. So I went around to my neighbors who had dogs, and I said, hey, can I walk your dogs while you're at work, for $20 a pop? I'll pick up their poop. We'll get them exercised, and it helps you. It helps me. And my neighbors were wonderful and said yes. So I started walking my neighbors' dogs and picking up their dog poop. And talk about eating a piece of humble pie, right? And I was able to build that then into folks wanted doggy daycare. Well, I couldn't do doggy
Hmm.
daycare at my house because I was going to lose my house. So one of my dog walking clients who did not know me before any of this said, I've got this old crappy warehouse, frankly, that you can have for a reduced rent. You're going to have to go into, like, it hasn't been touched in 50 years. She said, you're going to have to
Wow.
go in and, take everything out, wash the walls, paint, build, grooming stations for dogs, build kennels for dogs, etc. And I did that. And I had some friends who did help me along the way do that. It's the most labor intensive thing I've ever done. My goodness. And I did it myself because I couldn't afford to hire anyone. So I turned this dog walking business into daycare, boarding, grooming. And then about 3 years in, people started to swing by and offer to buy my business because I turned it into a viable business. We probably kept 40 or 60 dogs a day at that point. And I wasn't quite ready because I didn't know what I was going to do with the rest of my life if I sold doggy daycare. Like, what am I going to do? I can't go back to TV. And this is the other thing. But as time passed, more and more people approached me about buying the business. And finally, the right offer came, and I was exhausted, from working and taking care of 40 to
Mhm.
60 dogs every single day. And so I thought, yeah,
Wow.
I'll take this offer and, and then let's see what happens after that. And the day that I was giving the keys to doggy daycare to the new owner, KSTP television in St. Paul, in
Mm.
Minneapolis, Minnesota, called me out of the blue, and they said, hey, we've got this investigative producer job. It's behind the scenes. You won't be on camera again. You'll be shaping and crafting stories for other people. Would you be open to that? And keep in mind, this is the same station that 3 years earlier I met with face to face, who said, we do not have a place for you. But you know what the difference was in those 3 years? I got my life
Yeah.
together. I'm living a clean
Mm.
life, sobriety. I'm living spiritually. I'm going to AA meetings. I'm doing all the things. And this is where the rewards come in. You put in the work, you pay the consequences, you deal with what you have to because you inflicted this. And then the rewards came through sobriety and through working a program.
Amazing, Beth. I tell you, this is a very important story. And you said something about alcohol earlier while you were talking. You said, in a world of relationship, alcohol is a taker and not a giver. That's really profound. I tell you, in all that you went through, all of these things that you faced, you paid the price, the consequences, you faced it, and you still find your way around by pursuing knowledge, you see. Not
Yes.
accepting that okay, it is over. You went through a lot, Beth. I tell you. And this is a very important story. And I've got to say thank you so very much for not keeping all of this to yourself. This wonderful story with this beautiful ending. I tell you. While you were talking,
And
I was just like, okay, so what is the end? How does it play out? I want to know. I want to know. This is
yeah,
amazing.
there's a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end of this book, and I'll explain that here in a second. But I think it was important for me in particular because something that I've done from the beginning of my arrest is take accountability. I did this, it's self-inflicted. If Fox News didn't do it to me, I did it to them. So I put them in a terrible position. They had to fire me. And when I started writing the book, I just, I feel like people, they want to hide their failures or hide the messy parts of life. We all want to look better than what we really are. And I just started writing this from chapter one. When people open the cover of the book, they are right there with me in jail, wearing the orange jumpsuit. They experience jail, they experience the court. And I take people behind the scenes of what it's like to deal with addiction and the consequences, because I believe people can resonate and understand you can fail miserably in your life, and you can also turn your life around. We all have that in us. And, recovery is not for a select few. Transformation isn't for everybody else. It's for us. But you have to do the work and get in there and put the work in. So that's why I show all of the messy parts. And believe me, there were plenty of surreal experiences, appalling, embarrassing, humiliating. And I put it all in there so that people can understand. And my story is about addiction, recovering from alcoholism. But really, and I know it's a memoir, so it seems like me, 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 me. But I believe that people will see themselves in my struggle, in my surrender, and then in my strength. I believe that they can connect with that. And because alcoholism is just an equal opportunity disease. And, whether people are struggling, with domestic violence or mental health issues, all of us can take some action to turn it around.
So true. And I love that. So to bring this to an end, Beth, what would you like to leave the audience with, like a final thought? And to those folks who like to reach out to you, maybe you've just inspired them and they'll love to get your book. How can that be possible?
Yes. So a couple of thoughts that I love to share with people because it helps to get me through the really rough days when we all have rough days, right? That number one, you can be broken and you can be brave. We all can be that. And asking for help, this was very hard for me to take the help that was offered to me because it felt like weakness and I didn't want to give in. Well, what I've learned now is how wrong I was, that asking for help is a sign of strength and it amplifies all of the resources that you will have. And if people, admit they have a problem, people will help people who help themselves. You will find that your circle the people that are important, that love you the most, they will circle the wagons around you to try and help and support you as well, as long as you are taking some action. And I'd also like to think that I'm inspiration in action. I am living proof you can literally lose it all, family members
Yeah.
included. Like I couldn't repair my relationship with my father because he thought of alcoholism as a character fault, not a disease. Different generation. But the Lord knows I tried. And I want people to know that every day, if you screw up one day, because nobody does recovery perfectly, and nobody does life perfectly. If you screw up one day, well, tomorrow you get a new chance to course correct. And you can build a life that you don't need to escape from, that you don't need to numb yourself from. And another important point is you grow from what you go through. And that's very important. I live by that. You grow from what you go through. So if people would like to get my book, number one, I'd be honored. I think there's some great takeaway in there. I offer suggestions as well for people, like if they're having cravings or how to eliminate some trigger points. So the book is called Stand By, and it's available everywhere books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kindle. It'll be out on Audibles in a few months. It's taken me a little bit of time to record that. And then this book is one of two. So I will have a sequel coming out next year in 2026.
Oh,
Stand
wow.
By is about my fall, and Still Standing will be about the rise. And I go more in depth about the steps I took to slowly build my comeback. And I also take people behind the scenes of some huge news stories that I've covered so they can see what it looks like on that end, and maybe how someone like myself could absorb the trauma that you cover every day and, look for an escape. But I really believe the book shows the cost of transformation from the inside out, from someone who's walked through the fire and found the light. So I want to show other people, hey, the light's over here, come this way, you know. And then, speaking of podcasts, I'm starting a new podcast. It'll come out in 2 weeks, and it's called What Could Possibly Go Wrong? About,
Awesome.
yeah, which is, sometimes you think you're doing something in life and it's going to be the right thing, and it turns out to be incredibly wrong for you. Or you're like, no, I don't think I want to do that. And you do it and it turns out to be a blessing. So that's where What Could Possibly Go Wrong just speaks to all of us as well.
Amazing, Beth. This is so beautiful. You grow from what you go through. I got
Yes.
that. Because what you're going through has not come to destroy you, but to trigger your growth. Wow, I got that. That's a beautiful one.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be the end of the show, Beth. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing this wonderful stuff with us. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
Thank you for giving me a voice. I appreciate it. And the goal here is to build a bridge to others, who this might resonate with, and let them know that they still can build a future.
That's so true. Beautiful.